Welcome to the dumpster fire that is 2021's worst movies. Don't get too close because you might get burned or bored out of your mind. We got movies on this list from unwanted sequels, uncomfortable adaptations, and disappointing products from fun premises. If you take anything away from this video, don't bother watching any of these listed films. Let's get started.
You're Mary Morrison, best-selling author.
I haven't written in a while.
Deadly Illusions is an erotic thriller about an author who is brought back to write a new installment of her murder mystery series. So she hires a completely nice and normal nanny to help around the house so she can work on her writing. Over time, the tension builds between the ladies and our lead begins having trouble telling reality and fantasy apart. Directed and written by Anna Elizabeth James. Long story short, this movie is a very by-the-numbers genre flick. But what makes it stand out, in the laughing at the TV kind of way, is the twist. The movie is overall a standard, almost intriguing story topped off with the silliest portrayal of multiple personality disorder I've ever seen, and I've seen Split. Complete with a gravelly monster voice modifier when the evil one talks, it's trashy, messy, and whatever you'd expect from a movie like this. And I've already exhausted my brain power talking about it in an earlier video, so let's move on.
It's time for you to pay.
You hurt me?
That's hilarious.
We were lucky to get out of those escape rooms alive.
I need to know that the criminals who killed the 4 people in front of me are held accountable.
The sequel to a franchise no one was asking for returns with more trap rooms that are the only thing going for the series. Escape Room Tournament of Champions is a horror thriller movie. Adam Robitel returns as director, with Maria Melnick, Will Honley, Daniel Tuch, and Oren Uziel write the screenplay. Starring Taylor Russell and Logan Miller as our recent champions coming back for round 2. Depending on how you felt about the first movie, it's probably going to be pretty close to your feelings for this film. Same type of premise, same stupid writing choices, some fun puzzles, same overcomplicated villain tactics. It feels like it's a movie version of DLC. The movies have basically the exact same ending. Spoiler warning right now. Okay, good. Turns out the bad guys got away, and there's more people on the inside than expected, and the plane set up as a trap at the end of the first movie is now being used. But the movie ends before the puzzle begins, so who knows what's actually going to happen, or who even cares. I don't have a terrible amount to talk about this, because besides the stupid twist it tries to throw at you, and sometimes interesting tricks they have to do to get out safely, you'll be distracted by the astronomically improbable odds that this whole game needed to happen in the first place. The only room to escape is the one that has a TV playing this movie.
Thank you for your participation.
We survived.
Yep, they made another one. You know the plot of the Purge movies. This installment is directed by Everardo Gout and written by James DeMonico, who's actually written every previous Purge film. I'd rank this 4th place in the series. Anarchy, Election Year, The First Purge, Forever, and then followed by The Purge. Like the actual first Purge. Not the prequel called The First Purge. Jesus, when did this become The Fast and the Furious? I'll try to make this quick. Positives. Sure, there's a couple. The shootouts and over-the-top campiness is entertaining, no doubt. Sometimes, however, it's kinda hard to tell when I'm supposed to be laughing at the movie. Characters are extremely one-note because complexity is this franchise's biggest enemy. It wants to make social commentary, which is commendable, especially going on the topic of immigration and nationalism. But these are topics that are written for a movie with a demographic that would only see it as clever or really deep if they'd never seen any social commentary before. The stylized and gratuitous violence is also kind of a mixed message because you want to act like the bad guys are in the wrong and hateful. But why do you make them the only memorable part? The heroes are forgettable and too bland to make that statement feel like you truly mean it. Dialogue that really makes you think because it reverses the narrative on reality. Again, not an awful premise, but you gotta actually seem like you give a shit about the message more than the kills. One more quick note, if you have been keeping up with the series, this movie undoes Election Year. The whole point of the 3rd movie is to keep this lady alive so she can win the election and get rid of the Purge. She does just that at the end, so we had a prequel movie after that because the whole point was that the Purge was over. Forever Purge opens with a newscaster saying that the woman got voted out and the new founding fathers reinstated the Purge. So if you feel like binging, which you shouldn't, skip Election Year because it's basically pointless. Good job. This series should be illegal all year long.
Face it, your God, your book, they're in the way. You feel that you're making a last-ditch stand for your faith, and you've chosen this as a hill that you're willing to die on.
Much like the deity in the titular series, God's Not Dead continues to live on with the 4th installment, We the People. Van Knoll directs with Tommy Blaze as the writer. David A.R. White returns as David Hill, a reoccurring priest. Instead of debating college professors, separating church and school, or whatever the third movie was about, I think it had something to do with Jesus not liking burned churches or something. Actually wait, this one is also about separating church and school. But now it's homeschool. The same boring and tired beats are hit. Christians being persecuted by the evil government that wants to destroy their good moral values, going through legal cases that would totally happen and aren't hyperbolic fallacies based on actual legit court cases that are only similar in the fact that a Christian person was in court about something religious related. The details being much different have nothing to do with anything, I'm sure. It's easy to point at a person criticizing the series and saying they just hate religion or like making baby Jesus cry. But here's the thing, I don't care about the inherent religious tones. It's the fact that these movies are so damn boring. Because these cases are so thin and have no base in reality to be interesting, the acting is a Lifetime original on a Wednesday morning level, but missing any actual drama. Whether you're Christian or not, these films are poorly written, barely watchable slogs to get through. Plus, I wasn't even able to use my AMC A-list pass on this movie because they literally made it to where you had to pay to watch it. So there's that. Go find faith in a different film series.
You are out of order, Mr. Hill. A government of the people, by the people, for the people.
Every story has a beginning. Discover the origin of evil.
It took 19 years and 7 films, but we have a Resident Evil movie that actually tries to follow the games. I've never been a fan of the original series, so learning this reboot was coming, there was some hope in me somewhere. Then I saw the trailer and I remembered what we were dealing with. Welcome to Raccoon City loosely retells the story of the first 2 video games of the franchise. A zombie breakout starts to tear down the city, and a secret lying beyond the forest and hidden away in a mansion might have something to do with it. We follow our loaded cast of familiar characters, Chris and Claire Redfield, Leon S. Kennedy, Jill Valentine, and Albert Wesker, as they try to escape the town and find some answers. Written and directed by Johannes Roberts. Positives? It's not the worst Resident Evil movie. So this movie is obnoxious and stupid. Trying to cram 2 video games into an hour and 40 minutes will not work, especially when the games are all about complicated backstories. So many callbacks but with changed context, wasted monster moments, moving characters around in situations that try to recreate the games you remember but severely worse versions of it. Motivations with horribly explained exposition, action scenes that are too dark to see, and when you can't see it's like someone's holding a strobe light into your eyes. There's a gunfire part that's edited to shit to be stylistic, but I was getting nauseous watching it. That sums up most of the movie, honestly. It's just things mashed together going for style, but doesn't seem to actually know how to make it the style it's going for. If you want to learn the story of the game series, just watch the old cutscenes. At least there's some fun in those. Welcome to Raccoon City. Don't bother stopping and just pass on through.
This is a safe place. I'm agoraphobic. I can't go outside.
The Woman in the Window is a psychological thriller based on the novel of the same name. An agoraphobic woman witnesses a murder in her neighbor's apartment, but things quickly don't seem to be adding up. Directed by Joe Wright and written by Tracy Letts. Let me fill you in on something about The Woman in the Window. This is so low on the list because I was legit excited when I first heard of this movie. The cast and premise had me interested, but as time went on, the writing was on the wall, and what was left was a ridiculous, discombobulating story. When the movie made me laugh more at its absurdity than the recent Netflix parody series, I mean, you be the judge of that. Twists and turns to feel so cliche, yet out of the blue at the same time. It's almost praiseworthy. Much like I said before, don't waste your time and skip out on The Woman in the Window.
Evan Macaulay. Diagnosed with schizophrenia at 14. After carving the words, "Look inside," into your chest.
If you're getting tired of Marvel and DC getting all the superhero fun, just hold out a bit longer because Infinite won't be breaking that norm anytime soon. Infinite is a superhero movie about beings with the ability to reincarnate after death and carry the knowledge of their past lives. Written by Ian Shore and directed by Anton Fukuya. To put it simply, Infinite feels like 70% of a movie. It has all the plot elements, the story beats, and the type of characters you'd expect, but literally none of the parts that make it unique or even engaging. The characters themselves have no personality or really any likable traits. The whole backstory to these Infinites is told in the opening narrative and explained a little more as the story goes on, just to kinda like, yep, they exist. Also, they can fly. Sometimes. Some of them? I don't know. They hint at powers and abilities, but again, there's none of those smaller details that get brought up to either make sense or help guide you. Quick side note, Mark Wahlberg's character I think is supposed to be the same age as Sophie Cookson's character, but as you can clearly see if you're watching it at all, they're very much not the same age. It's stuff like that where you're not supposed to question things, but all you want to do is ask, why is anything the way it is? When is this over?
You will understand who you can become.
Dear Evan Hansen, today is going to be an amazing day, and here's why.
Dear Evan Hansen is a film adaptation of the musical of the same name. A high school student's letter to himself gets confused for a fellow student's suicide note, and a spiral of lies and attempts to help those grieving turns into a horrible disaster. Directed by Steven Chbosky and written by Steven Levinson. I've never seen the musical, and I don't know how faithful it is to the source material, but if it is, geez. Dear Evan Hansen is the only movie this year that made me have to take a break halfway through because my soul kept trying to leave my body from uncomfortableness. I had to go make food, eat, and go be upset again. When you have people just being awful to begin with, and digging themselves into holes you could almost fit the amount of disdain I have for this film in, is the subject matter itself just a tricky source to take from? Absolutely, but good lord, it did not have to be this bad. There's a possible story here, but in the end you're left with no likable or redeeming people besides the ones who are treated completely unfairly, and that's like 2 people? The main character Evan only has himself to blame, and other characters that act like they're trying to do good do additionally selfish and horrible things that help no one. The music is pretty forgettable too, and when 2021 had some pretty good musicals this year, that does not help you in any way. It's hard to tell if the feel-good moments of the movie are ever actually supposed to make you feel good, because we know the truth, there's always this sense of dread, which isn't a bad thing if that's the intent, but you never start changing sides or how you feel about the situation, and it's just kinda gross. If anyone wondering, the part I had to take a break from is the scene where Evan and the deceased kid's sister are doing a duet. For context, Evan has a crush on the sister and is feeding her compliments as if it's things her brother said about her, but Evan is trying to hit on her. With all the sibling love of that Folgers commercial.
Oh.
What are you doing?
You're my present this year.
I have to tell them.
'Twas the night before Christmas vacation. And the fun was in full swing.
You have split our family onto 2 separate flights. Mom! Max, please!
Why not add a new installment to a series that outstayed its welcome long ago? Directed by Dan Manzer and written by Mikey Day and Streeter Seidel. Starring Archie Yates as Max, our home aloner, with Rob Delaney and Ellie Camper as our bumbling home invaders. You'll be shocked to hear that Home Alone 6, aka Home Sweet Home Alone, has the same basic plot as the first 5 movies. With that said, you might be wondering, if that's the case, how can it possibly be second on the list? Because they somehow beat a dead horse of a story, but then changed around elements that literally go against what makes any Home Alone movie close to watchable. The problem Home Sweet Home Alone has is that it makes the main kid, Max, really unlikable, and because he's weirdly not in the movie that much, you have no sympathy for him when the trap sequence sets off. The burglars are more of the main characters this time around, and although they do break into this kid's house, it's because they think he stole an expensive item that they can sell so they can keep their house because they're low on money. When you hear that and watch this, you want them to get the MacGuffin back. But this movie has some of the most brutal traps in the series and is used on characters you feel really bad for as it goes on. The wife gets her feet burned and has push pins stabbed into her face, while the husband gets multiple pole balls launched into his head with unsettling crack sounds. If this happened to Marv or Harry, it might feel just as extreme, but you didn't emotionally attach to them, so the gross and uncomfortable feeling wouldn't be present. When an annoying and rude kid is your hero, while the parents trying to save their home are the villains, you can see why Home Sweet Home Alone shouldn't be allowed in the house.
This is not going
Home Alone.
Failed. The gun is in my hand.
Sorry.
Don't Breathe 2 is a sequel to the 2016 horror thriller. The team of Fede Alvarez and Rodo Sallegas returned to write the film, but switch places as director. The blind man from the first movie must protect his granddaughter from a group of men intruding his house with unknown reasons. Stephen Lang plays blind man Norman, and Madeline Grace plays Tara, the granddaughter. This may be odd to some people if you saw Don't Breathe 2. At face value, the movie itself isn't that bad. The direction and visuals add a lot of tension and fun to the action sequences, which are done overall decent. I really liked the first Don't Breathe and thought it was a great surprise to get randomly in the summer. However, the pure existence of a sequel is where the trouble starts. If you haven't seen the first Don't Breathe, I'm about to spoil the big twist. The blind man's daughter was killed in a car accident years ago. To get his revenge, he kidnapped the girl who ran her over and artificially inseminated her in his basement and locked her away until she gave birth to his new daughter. The pregnant woman is accidentally shot at one point, and the blind man tries to take the girl intruder and do the same thing to her with a big turkey baster and his homemade formula. Isn't that terrible? That's insane and gross, right? So when the sequel is announced, how are you supposed to feel when the same old man is the main character and the hero with seemingly no irony in any way? It's kind of insulting to your audience because you're asking them to just forget he did that. But they also bring it back up at the end, but leave out the details, of course. They do this as he's dying after saving his not actual granddaughter. The girl he's been keeping at his house is actually the daughter of the intruders, who are meth dealers, trying to get her back for some heart transplant shit for her dying meth-cooking mother. He acquired this child when she was like 3 after her house caught on fire and she wandered from the property and passed out. And he's just been her guardian since. The movie never says if he knew the parents or how much he knew of her background before this happened. It seems like he was just walking around and was like, "Ah, sick, a kid, I need one of those," and just kept her. That's your hero for a movie that refuses to acknowledge how horrible of a main character this guy is. Plus the dialogue fucking sucks. Don't Breathe 2 may not be the worst made film of 2021, but it's the only one that got me this annoyed and angry at its mere existence. Don't waste your time or breath on this one. And with that, the worst of the year is behind us, and we move on to next week's award shows, the Me's. Hope to see you guys then, and until next time, take care.